Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
Yeah, and today we are conducting a structural analysis of a system that is, well, usually treated as a matter of luck or maybe chemistry.
Right, or just poetic tragedy.
Exactly. But we are looking at the actual architecture of the modern self and specifically the systemic production of unhappiness.
And to do this, we're pulling from a source that might seem a little surprising to some of you listening. We aren't looking at a modern self-help guru or a psychologist.
Yeah.
We are looking at a text from 1930 by a man known mostly for hard logic and mathematics. We're doing a deep dive into The Conquest of Happiness by Bertrand Russell.
Now, I want to set the stage here immediately because, well, happiness is a word that has been cheapened a bit over the last century.
Oh, absolutely.
You see it on greeting cards, you see it in marketing campaigns. But when Bertrand Russell talks about happiness, he is not talking about a fleeting mood. He is talking about a structural state of being.
And he's not approaching this as a feel-good exercise either.
Yeah.
That's what struck me most about the source material. Russell was a logician.
Right.
He wrote Principia Mathematica. He spent his entire life trying to ground mathematics in absolute logic. So when he turned his eyes to human emotion, he didn't suddenly become a poet, he stayed an engineer.
He really did. We need to treat this text not as a collection of, daily affirmations, but as an engineering manual. Russell looked at the modern civilized person.
The person who has food, shelter, safety.
Right, and he asked a systems question. Why is this machine overheating? Why is it producing so much friction?
Because he saw unhappiness as a design flaw. Or rather, a series of design flaws in how we actually construct the self.
He frames it as a prison we often don't even realize we are in. And the core thesis of this deep dive, the mission, if you will, is to understand that happiness is not a gift that the universe just bestows upon you.
Right, it's not an accident of fortune.
It's a conquest.
It's a conquest, which is a heavy word. It implies a battle. It implies effort.
It does. But the enemy isn't the world outside. The enemy is the modern moral psychological system that we have all internalized. It's the code running in our own heads.
So we're going to dismantle this system today. We're going to look at the design of the unhappy self, the incentives that society places on us to remain unhappy, the actual structural outcomes like fatigue and envy, and finally, the interconnection that breaks the feedback loop.
We are going to trace those loops from the nursery straight to the office and hopefully find the exit.
Let's start with the design phase. And I think the best place to start is with Russell himself, because he doesn't present himself as this enlightened guru who was just born happy.
Far from it.
He presents himself as a case study in misery.
Yeah, it's a vital opening for him. He establishes his credibility by confessing to a really profound structural unhappiness in his youth. He describes his childhood in this Victorian puritanical household.
Yeah.
And he says that as a 5-year-old, literally 5 years old, his favorite hymn was weary of earth and laden with my sin.
That is just a terrifying image. A toddler walking around the nursery singing about being weary of the earth.
It shows the sheer power of the system he was born into. He says that by adolescence he was suicidal. He hated life. The only thing that kept him from suicide was, and this is a very specific, weird detail, the desire to know more mathematics.
Which is our first breadcrumb here. Why mathematics?
Because mathematics is not him. Mathematics exists outside of his ego. It's external. It is objective. This is the pivot point for the whole book. Russell realized that his unhappiness was caused by a total obsessive focus on himself.
Right. He was meditating on his sins, constantly checking his emotional temperature, auditing his own morality.
And he was a closed system.
A closed system. And in thermodynamics, a closed system eventually runs down, right? It reaches maximum entropy.
Precisely. Russell writes, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, that gradually he learned to be indifferent to himself and his deficiencies. He came to center his attention increasingly upon external objects.
So the fundamental design flaw of the unhappy self is self-absorption.
That is the root. If you want to design a human being who is guaranteed to be miserable, you design them to be incapable of looking outward. You turn all their sensors inward.
And Russell categorizes this self-absorption into 3 specific archetypes, which I found fascinating. He calls them the sinner, the narcissist, and the megalomaniac.
Yeah, let's unpack these because I think they serve as a really good diagnostic tool for you listening. You'll probably see flashes of yourself in them. I know I did.
Let's start with the sinner.
So the sinner is the product of early moral training. Russell is writing in 1930, so he focuses heavily on the puritanical influence, the suppression of sex, the obsession with purity. But from a systems perspective, we can broaden this to any form of internalized guilt.
It's the person who is perpetually disapproving of themselves.
Yes. The sinner creates a split personality. You have the acting self, which is the one just trying to live life, and the observing self, which is the internal judge.
Right.
And the judge is constantly saying, you shouldn't be doing that, or you aren't good enough, or that was a sinful thought.
It's basically an internal civil war.
And you cannot be happy during a civil war. The sinner is imprisoned by the past and by a rigid, often incredibly irrational moral code. They are encased in their own guilt.
Then you have the narcissist. And this one feels incredibly relevant to our modern social media age.
Oh, totally. The narcissist is the sinner's opposite in a way, but the structural outcome is exactly the same. The sinner focuses on the self to judge it. The narcissist focuses on the self to admire it, or rather to have it admired by others.
Well, Russell makes a really sharp distinction here between wanting to be loved and wanting to be admired.
It's a crucial systemic distinction. Love is reciprocal. It flows out and it flows in. Admiration is one way.
Right.
The narcissist treats the world as a mirror. They stand before it and they perform. If the world applauds, they feel a temporary high. If the world stops looking, they collapse.
But even if the world keeps clapping, Russell says there's a fatal flaw in that design.
The flaw is boredom. The self is finite. You are just one person. If you are only interested in yourself, eventually you just run out of material. The world, however, is infinite. There is always more to learn about geology or history or other people.
But the narcissist cuts themselves off from that infinite data stream.
Exactly. They cut themselves off from the infinite data stream of the universe to focus on the very, very small data stream of their own ego.
So they end up bored to death, usually while surrounded by people.
Yep. And then the third type is the megalomaniac. This is essentially the Napoleon complex.
The desire to be feared rather than loved.
The megalomaniac wants power. They want absolute control. And Russell admits this type often achieves great things in the real world. They build empires, they conquer nations, they run massive corporations, but they are not happy.
Because power is like a drug.
More because power is a treadmill. If your happiness depends on controlling your environment, you are in a constant, unwinnable battle against reality. Reality is messy. People are unpredictable. The moment something resists you, you are miserable. And even if you conquer the world like Alexander the Great, you are just left alone in a world you own but cannot actually enjoy.
So the sinner, the narcissist, and the megalomaniac are really all just different flavors of the exact same structural error. They're all prisoners of the self.
They're all walling themselves off from the stream of life.
But how does this actually happen? We aren't born with these walls, are we? Or is this just inherent human nature?
Russell argues it is largely early conditioning. This is where his concept of the sense of sin comes in. He is highly critical of the way we raise children, or at least how they were raised in his time, though I'd argue the mechanism is completely identical today.
The installation of the conscience.
We tend to think of the conscience as this holy, divine voice of truth in our heads. Russell says no. He says the conscience is usually just the internalized voice of your mother or your nurse.
Infantile suggestions.
Exactly. When you are 3 years old, you are told, don't touch that, or that's dirty, or you are wicked. You don't understand the logic behind it. You just feel the fear and the shame. Those suggestions get buried deep in the unconscious.
So 20 years later, you're a fully rational adult, but you have this vague, lingering sense of guilt whenever you try to relax or enjoy yourself.
That is the split personality again. The adult mind says, hey, it is Sunday, I should relax. But the infantile unconscious says, idleness is sin.
Right.
The result is a friction that manifests as chronic anxiety. You aren't doing anything wrong, but you feel wrong. And that feeling drives you right back into self-monitoring, back into the prison.
So that's the design phase. We have a self that is constructed to monitor and judge itself constantly. But this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Society actively reinforces it, which brings us to phase 2.
Incentives.
The incentive architecture, or basically how we built a society that actively pays us to be miserable.
Russell talks about the struggle for life. It's a phrase we hear a lot even today. It conjures up images of a biological fight for survival. But Russell looks at his peers, the wealthy businessmen of London and New York, and says, what struggle? These men have plenty of food, they have warm houses, their children aren't dying of starvation.
He corrects the term. He says it's not a struggle for life, it's a struggle for success.
This is a massive distortion of the human system. If you are struggling for life, there is a clear finish line. You get the food, you eat, you are happy. If you are struggling for success, there is no finish line. Success is purely relative. It is defined solely by outshining your neighbor.
It's the treadmill.
It is a treadmill that moves faster the harder you run. Russell describes a dinner scene that is just hauntingly modern. He talks about a wealthy man who is powerful and respected. But this man is incapable of simply enjoying his dinner. He is frantic. He is scanning the room. He is thinking about how to get leverage on the guy across the table.
He's working when he should be living.
He is engaged in a contest rather than a shared experience. The incentive structure of modern competitive economic organization tells us that happiness is not about enjoyment. It is about distinction. It is about winning.
And if you are always trying to win, you can never let your guard down. You can never just look at a flower and say, wow, that's a nice flower. You have to ask, can I sell this flower? Or does my neighbor have a better flower?
It creates a totally instrumental view of the world. Everything becomes a tool for advancement. And when everything is just a tool, nothing has intrinsic value. You hollow out the entire world.
But it's not just the businessmen, is it? Russell also takes aim at the intellectuals. He talks about Byronic unhappiness.
Yes, the man who has seen through it all.
This is the cool kid phenomena, the idea that optimism is naive and that true intelligence requires a kind of cynical detachment.
Russell references Ecclesiastes for this. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. In the 1920s and 30s, there was this very fashionable despair among writers and thinkers. We see it today in the doomer mindset, or the cynical tech bro who thinks everything is fundamentally broken.
Which is funny because Russell, who was a pacifist during World War I and literally saw humanity at its absolute worst, he doesn't buy this at all.
He has zero patience for it. He argues that this superior rationality of the pessimist is a pose. It's a defense mechanism. If you say everything is meaningless, you effectively excuse yourself from the hard work of engaging with the world.
Right.
You get to sit on the sidelines and feel superior to the people who are actually trying.
He calls it a form of vanity.
It is. It's the vanity of the sinner again, who's dressed up in intellectual clothes. And he points out how the cynicism bleeds right into our leisure time. He has this devastating image of a party.
The grim resolve.
Yes. He says, just watch people at a modern party. They come determined to be happy, with the grim resolve of someone determining not to fuss at the dentist.
The hit's so hard. I mean, we've all been at that party. The music is loud, the drinks are flowing, but there's this desperate, heavy energy in the room.
It's because we aren't celebrating. We are escaping. We are trying to drown out the sense of sin or the fear of boredom with sheer noise. We are terrified of silence, so we manufacture this frantic excitement.
And the enforcer of all of this, the thing that keeps us on the treadmill and keeps us at the grim party, is the fear of public opinion.
The herd instinct. Russell argues that most people are absolutely terrified of being different. They suppress their true nature, their true tastes, their true opinions, just to fit the set they live in.
And if you suppress your true nature, you kill your vitality.
You become a ghost. You are living a life designed by your neighbors, not by yourself. And the funny thing is, the neighbors are living lives designed by their neighbors. It's a hall of mirrors where no one is actually home.
So we've covered the design, which is self-absorption, and the incentives, which are competition and socially reinforced cynicism. Now we have to look at the outcomes. What happens to the human system when it runs this corrupted software for decades?
The symptoms are deeply structural. They are predictable. The first major outcome is the dichotomy of boredom and excitement.
We talked about this briefly, but let's go deeper into it. The Sunday trouble.
The Sunday trouble is that very specific anxiety that arises when all the external demands stop. You have a day off. You should be happy. But instead, you feel a void.
Because the self-absorption kicks in.
The internal noise gets incredibly loud. So to silence it, we chase excitement. But Russell distinguishes between two distinct types of boredom. There is stultifying boredom, which is just dullness, it drains you. But there is also fructifying boredom.
The boredom that bears fruit.
Exactly. Think of a seed in the ground. It needs to sit in the dark, in the quiet, for a long time before it sprouts. The human mind is exactly the same. We need periods of fructifying boredom, stillness, lack of input to generate new ideas, to actually recharge our systems.
But the modern system incentivizes us to kill boredom immediately.
We treat boredom as a crisis, so we inject excitement. But excitement is a drug. You build a tolerance to it. You need more and more of it to get the exact same effect, which leads directly to the second outcome, fatigue.
And he's not talking about the good kind of tired you feel after, say, a long hike.
No, not at all. He calls that physical fatigue, and he says it actually destroys the sense of sin. If you are physically tired, you sleep like a baby. He is talking about nervous fatigue.
The fatigue of the worry loop.
It's the inability to turn off the conscious mind. We carry our office problems into our commute, into our dinner, into our beds. We are constantly churning.
It's like leaving a car engine revving while it's parked in the garage.
And this leads to a highly dangerous feedback loop. When you are mentally exhausted, your conscious will is weakened. You lose the ability to filter out those infantile suggestions.
Right.
The tired mind is a fearful mind. The more tired you are, the more the sense of sin attacks you, which makes you worry more, which makes you more tired.
It's a complete death spiral.
It is. And then we add the social outcome to the mix. Envy.
Russell calls envy the democratic vice.
Mm.
I found that completely fascinating. Why does democracy increase envy?
Because democracy creates the illusion of equality. In a rigid caste system, a peasant doesn't envy the king. The king is practically a different species. The king is divinely appointed. There is simply no comparison.
But in a democracy, my neighbor is just like me.
Theoretically, yes. So if he has a better car or a better job, the question immediately arises, why him and not me? The social barriers are removed, so the field of comparison becomes infinite.
And envy is a perceptual distortion.
It is a profound blindness. Russell says the envious man does not enjoy what he has, but suffers because of what others have. You could have an absolute feast in front of you, but if you think your neighbor's feast is slightly better, yours tastes like ash.
It's the ultimate thief of joy.
And it leads to the final, most extreme outcome of this system: persecution mania.
Now, this sounds like clinical paranoia, but Russell argues it's actually a very common everyday phenomenon.
It's the tendency to believe that the world is personally against you. Why does it always rain when I want to have a picnic? Why does the traffic always stop in my lane?
It's main character syndrome gone wrong.
It's the dark side of the megalomaniac. It stems from an exaggerated sense of your own merit. If you believe you are the protagonist of reality, then any misfortune must be a deliberate plot point designed to thwart you.
Right. If I'm the hero, the universe is the villain targeting me.
Russell's cure for this is brutally funny. He basically says, get over yourself. He writes, don't imagine that most people give enough thought to you to have any special desire to persecute you.
You just aren't that important.
You aren't. The universe is not conspiring against you. The universe is just doing what it does. It's impersonal. And realizing your own insignificance in the grand scheme is actually a massive relief. It lifts the burden.
Speaking of burdens, that connects to the ultimate symptom he describes.
Yeah.
The loss of zest. The urge to just numb everything out. He talks about the drunkard.
Yes, he views intoxication as a form of temporary suicide. The goal of the drunkard is to kill the thinking self, because the self has become entirely too painful to inhabit. The civilized man is separated from the soil, from the rhythms of nature, and is prone to this existential ennui. So he numbs the system.
So we have the design, the incentives, and the outcomes. Chronic anxiety, isolation, cynical detachment. The system is working perfectly to make us miserable. But why does it persist? Why don't we just stop doing this to ourselves?
This brings us to phase 4, persistence, and specifically the trap of traditional morality, which he calls the virtue trap.
This is where Russell really challenges our culturally inherited morality. We are taught from day one that to be good, we must be self-sacrificing.
We are taught that selfishness is the root of evil, so we must constantly deny ourselves. We must live exclusively for others. But Russell argues that this kind of self-denial is actually just another form of self-obsession.
How so?
Think about it. If I save a drowning child because I want to be known as a virtuous person, where's my focus?
It's on yourself, on your own virtue.
Exactly. I am looking in the mirror saying, look at me being a hero. I am not actually looking at the child. I am using the child as a prop for my own internal moral drama.
Versus saving the child because you just want the child to live.
Right. That is a direct outward impulse. It completely bypasses the ego. Russell argues that the person who lives a life of self-sacrifice based on rigid duty usually ends up deeply unhappy. And because they are unhappy, they become resentful.
I gave up everything for you people.
We've all heard that voice. The martyr parent, the martyr employee. They generate enormous amounts of guilt in everyone around them. They poison the atmosphere. Russell says you can't be good by trying to be good. You become good by genuinely caring about things outside yourself.
Which is the perfect transition to the actual solution.
Okay.
Phase 5, interconnection, the conquest.
We have diagnosed the disease, the inward collapse of the self. The cure, therefore, has to be structural. We must reverse the flow. We must create a centrifugal force that throws the attention outward.
Russell groups this into a few key strategies. The first is impersonal interests.
This is genuinely one of my favorite parts of the book. He talks about the of the Chaldees.
It's such a wonderfully specific, weird example.
It is. He says that when he is overwhelmed by anxiety about his marriage, his work, the impending war, he reads about the excavations of ancient cities. He reads about the of the Chaldees.
Now, a modern self-help guru would say, focus on your problems, face them, do the work.
And Russell says, ignore them, or rather put them in their proper context. If you focus solely on your tax audit, you just spiral. But if you read about a civilization that rose, flourished, and turned to dust 5,000 years ago, you get a sense of proportion.
It reminds you that you are small.
And if you are small, your problems are small. This is the direct antidote to persecution mania. A man who understands the vastness of the galaxy or the deep time of geology cannot seriously believe that the cosmos is bent on ruining his Tuesday.
It widens the aperture. It breaks the claustrophobia of the ego.
It connects you to the stream of life. Russell uses this fluid metaphor constantly. The unhappy man is a billiard ball, hard, separate, colliding with things. The happy man is water. He flows into the world.
And to flow like that, you need zest.
Zest. It's an appetite for life. He compares it directly to food.
Right, he has this typology of eaters. The glutton, the epicure, and the healthy eater.
So the glutton grabs everything. That's the hedonist, chasing sheer sensation to drown out the noise. The epicure is the cynic. I can only eat this very specific, refined dish. Everything else is garbage. But the healthy eater, they just like food. They sit down and say, oh, potatoes. Fantastic. I love potatoes.
It's the ability to take genuine interest in ordinary things, to be easily pleased.
Russell actually argues that the man who enjoys watching a football match is structurally superior to the man who doesn't.
I feel like that's going to annoy a lot of intellectuals.
Oh, it definitely will. But his system's logic is perfectly sound. The football fan has an open channel of interest. He has a way to connect with the world and with other people. The intellectual who sneers at sports has deliberately closed off that channel. He has artificially restricted his universe.
So the goal is to have as many channels open as possible, to diversify your happiness portfolio, so to speak.
Exactly. If you love poetry and football and gardening and geology, you're robust. If poetry has a bad year, you have geology. You are never left without a connection to the outside world.
And the deepest connection, of course, is affection, love.
But not cautious love. Russell writes, of all forms of caution, caution in love is perhaps the most fatal to true happiness.
Because caution is the wall again. It's the self protecting the self.
To love, to truly love, requires the total dissolution of the ego's borders. You have to let someone else in. You have to merge. It is the ultimate escape from the prison of the self. But it requires real vulnerability. It requires the willingness to be hurt.
So we have impersonal interests, which is looking at the world, and affection, merging with others. But Russell adds a final tool to the kit, the balance of effort and resignation.
The golden mean. He says the modern world is completely obsessed with effort. We think we can fix absolutely everything.
The struggle for success again.
But some things cannot be fixed. Death, time, the behavior of other people. If you apply effort to the inevitable, you will break. You will burn out.
So you need resignation.
But not the resignation of despair, the resignation of efficiency. I cannot change the weather, so I will not waste a single volt of energy complaining about it.
You save your energy for the things you actually can change.
Exactly. The happy man is an efficient system. He doesn't waste energy fighting ghosts or inevitabilities. He pours all his zest into the possible.
It's basically a systems-level application of the Serenity Prayer.
It really is. And it leads to a state of profound integration. The happy man is not divided against himself. He is, as Russell calls it, a citizen of the universe.
So we've mapped the system. We've seen the trap, the self-absorption, the competition, the envy. And we've seen the way out, interconnection, zest, proportion. Now, I want to pivot to our explicit analytical segment. I want to ask the question we always ask.
Let's do it.
What is the crisis in perception here?
The crisis is that we perceive happiness as an internal emotional weather state that simply happens to us.
We treat it like the weather. I hope I feel happy today.
Or we treat it as a fixed character trait. I'm just a depressive person. What we fail to see, the structural layer that is completely obscured, is that our internal feelings of guilt, anxiety, and inadequacy are actually internalizations of a flawed social system.
We think the voice in our head is us, but it's not us. It's the system echoing.
Precisely. The sense of sin, the competitive anxiety, the fear of boredom, these aren't biological constants. They are cultural artifacts. They are code installed by the nursery, the school, and the market. But because we perceive them as ours, we try to fix them with even more introspection.
We try to think our way out of a problem that is literally caused by overthinking.
We buy a diary. We go to psychoanalysis to talk about ourselves. We analyze our childhoods endlessly. We dig deeper and deeper into the ego. But Russell shows us that the self is a closed system that runs out of energy. The more you dig, the emptier it gets.
So the surface interpretation, the idea that I need to work on myself, fundamentally fails.
It fails because it reinforces the exact isolation causing the problem. The systems-level analysis changes our visibility entirely. It shows that to survive, the self must become an open system. It must connect to the stream of life.
You don't fix the machine by staring at the engine. You fix the machine by connecting it to the fuel source. And the fuel source is everything else. The world, nature, history, people, the of the Chaldees.
Anything that isn't you.
That is the structural clarity we were looking for. The conquest isn't a battle against your enemies. It's the act of breaking down the walls of the ego to let the universe in.
And once the walls are down, you realize the prison was never even locked. You were just holding the door shut from the inside the whole time.
Before we wrap up, I do want to circle back to something we touched on briefly, but I think it deserves a real deep dive within the deep dive. The concept of zest and the actual mechanics of losing it.
Yes, because this connects right back to the Byronic unhappiness we discussed in Phase 2. The loss of zest is often framed in our culture as a mark of sophistication. The idea that I've seen it all, so nothing excites me.
Them there, done that energy.
But Russell compares the mind to a physical body. If you stop eating, your stomach shrinks. If you start engaging with the world, your capacity for interest literally shrinks. The man who loses zest usually does so because he has restricted his intake, he has decided that certain things are beneath him.
The Epicure again.
Exactly. And while he feels intellectually superior to the people enjoying the bad movie or the simple game, he is structurally worse off. He is starving himself. Russell argues that vitality's sheer quantity of outward interest is the ultimate metric of health.
It reminds me of his section on the family. We skipped over it in the main roadmap, but it's so relevant here. He talks about how the family has become a source of unhappiness, specifically because of this lack of zest.
Yes, the heavy parent, the parent who loves their children with a grim resolve.
I am sacrificing everything for you.
That parent creates a massive debt. The child feels the crushing weight of that sacrifice. Russell argues that the best parent is the one who is actually happy in their own life. The parent who comes home from work with zest, who has robust interests outside the child.
Because then the child isn't the parent's only project.
The child isn't the source of the parent's happiness, but a sharer in it. That is a massive structural difference. If I need you to make me happy, I will inevitably control you. If I am already happy and I just want to share it with you, I will liberate you.
That connects right back to the narcissist versus affection distinction. The narcissist needs the child to reflect glory. The happy man just genuinely enjoys the child's company.
And this applies to work as well. We talked about the struggle for success, but Russell does firmly state that work is a key ingredient of happiness.
But constructive work.
Constructive work, yes. He distinguishes between work that merely moves matter about at or near the Earth's surface, which is just labor, and work that builds something.
The instinct to construct.
Yes. And this is just another way to escape the self. If you are building a bridge, or writing code, or planting a garden, you are creating something that exists outside of you. You can step back, look at it, and say, I made that.
And that object, the bridge, the garden, lasts longer than the mood you were in when you made it.
It creates continuity. This is a huge antidote to the sense of sin or the feeling of worthlessness. If you feel like garbage today, but the garden you planted last month is blooming, the garden argues against your feeling. It says, you did this is good.
It provides objective evidence of your value in the world.
Whereas the narcissist has no objective evidence. They only have fluctuating opinions. If people stop clapping, the narcissist has absolutely nothing. The builder always has the building.
So, if we are building a sort of toolkit for happiness based on this conversation, let's list the tools for the listener.
Tool 1 would be the interpretation check. When you feel bad, ask, is this me or is this the system? Is this the nurse speaking?
Stop the guilt loop in its tracks.
Tool 2, the Sunday test. Can you sit with yourself in an empty room? If not, don't just turn on the TV. Ask why. What are you running from?
Face the boredom. Let it become fructifying.
Tool 3, Diversify. Pick up an interest that has absolutely nothing to do with your career or your ego.
The Ur of the Chaldees strategy. Learn about moss. Learn about the history of buttons.
Anything that makes you feel small and the world feel big.
Tool 4. Stop keeping score.
The anti-envy tool. Stop looking at the neighbor's car. Realize that their perceived success is likely just fueling their own private anxiety.
And tool 5. Risk love.
Drop the caution. Be vulnerable. Merge with others.
It sounds so simple when we list them out like that.
Simple, but definitely not easy. That is why it is a conquest. You are fighting millions of years of evolutionary programming, which is fear, and hundreds of years of cultural programming, which is sin and competition.
But the prize is, well, the prize is life.
The prize is being fully alive before you die.
I want to go back to the persecution mania for a second, because I feel like in the age of the internet, this is completely metastasized.
Oh, absolutely. The algorithmic timeline is essentially a persecution machine.
Russell says, don't imagine people are thinking about you. But on social media, we are constantly structurally told that everyone is watching us, or that we should be watched.
We have democratized the narcissism and the megalomania. We have given literally everyone a stage. So now, if you don't get likes, you feel the narcissistic wound. And if you get negative comments, you feel the persecution.
So the technology has simply amplified the exact structural flaws Russell identified back in 1930.
It has industrialized them. It has turned the struggle for success into a 247 global tournament.
Which makes the conquest even more urgent today than it was then.
It makes it an act of profound rebellion. To be happy, genuinely, quietly, zestfully happy, in a world custom designed for envy and distraction. That is the ultimate rebellion.
It's the punk rock move.
It really is. Being miserable is conformist. Everyone is doing it. Being happy is radical.
I love that. Happiness is rebellion.
And remember Russell's point about resignation. We didn't dwell on it much, but it's highly critical for the modern activist mindset.
Go on.
We live in a culture that constantly says, you can change the world and never give up.
The cult of limitless effort.
Yes. But Russell says there are things you simply cannot change. If you rail against the weather or the fact that people are sometimes incredibly selfish or the fact that time passes, you will burn out.
You waste your energy on the impossible.
And then you have zero energy left for the possible. Resignation isn't defeat, it's efficiency. It's saying, I accept that I cannot change X, so I will pour all my zest into Y.
It's the serenity prayer, basically.
It is. But stripped of the theology and applied strictly as systems logic. If you don't have a leak of energy towards the inevitable, you maintain high pressure for the actionable.
So the happy man is also the efficient man.
In the best possible sense of the word. He doesn't waste his life fighting ghosts.
And speaking of ghosts, let's touch on the ghosts of the past one more time. Russell talks about how we are haunted by the morality of the nursery.
This is one of the hardest parts of the conquest. Because those ghosts are invisible, you don't know why you feel guilty about taking a nap. You just do.
Russell's advice is to drag the ghosts into the light.
He says, examine the irrationality closely. When that voice says, you are bad, you consciously, actively answer it. You say, why? What makes this bad? Is it harming anyone? No.
You have to literally argue with your own unconscious.
You have to reprogram it. It takes time. He says, do not be content with an alternation between moments of rationality and moments of irrationality. You have to be consistent. You have to bully the bully in your head.
Until the new tail grows.
That's the fox metaphor. The fox who lost his tail, the unhappy man, pretends that having no tail is a high fashion statement. But deep down, he desperately wants a tail. We can grow a new tail. We can build a new self.
A self that is open, connected, and zestful.
A self that is a window, not a mirror.
I think that is the perfect image to hold on to.
I agree entirely.
So this has been quite a journey. From the suicidal 5-year-old singing hymns to the integrated citizen of the universe.
It is the fundamental journey of maturity.
And it's a journey available to anyone listening, provided they're willing to do the structural work. The conquest.
It's waiting for you.
Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.